when we talk about water conservation in our country, you have to look at areas of our nation, particularly because we have different kinds of ecology. We have deserts, we have plateaus, we have riverine plains, we have hills, we have all sorts of things. Now the important thing in all of this is that we have managed over the millennia to be able to function with the water that we have and the water that we can conserve. Now, in some cases, for instance, where the problem is the greatest in the desert areas, as we know. It's also great in plateau areas where sometimes there's a failure of monsoons and things like that, and where you're not likely to have water, the underground water easily available. It probably is very deep. In some cases, probably there is no water source whatsoever. But over a long period of time, we have developed many water conservation kind of methods and methodologies. Now, I come from the Deccan. Now, the Deccan area, particularly the Telangana region and so on and so forth, where you have, it's essentially a plateau. There's no river running through it. The river either goes below like Krishna or Godavari, which is on top. So you hardly have any water source, existent water source there. So the source of water is either through wells, but then wells are only useful when there is a recharging possibility into the wells. Now that can only happen if you actually conserve water on the surface. So we had a series of lakes and tanks, which was the way water used to be conserved. So during the monsoons, they would get recharged and slowly the water would percolate down to the level where you had other water and where it could be retained, and from there, of course, wells and so on would be dug that would bring the water out. Now, we've had these kind of methodologies used in the past. Now, over a period of time, some of these traditional methods got, nobody really thought seriously about them, because you see, you had dams, rivers could be dammed, and from there waters could be taken through channels, different kinds of ways of getting the water to go to places where there is no water, and so on and so forth. But by doing all that, some of our traditional means of conserving water disappeared. Now, I think it is time when we relook at some of these ways in which we used to conserve water over the longest period of time, and which I think there is a case. While we think in terms of conserving water, we have to think of our traditional ways, and some of the traditional ways probably can be brought back. Now, that's my own personal feeling. I'm no expert in this field, but I personally feel that there was a lot of sense in the traditional forms of conserving water. And I think if we can go back to some of them, particularly in areas which are where the water situation is usually very dicey, say for instance in Marathwada region of Maharashtra or Telangana region of Andhra, now of course Telangana is a state on its own. Now in places like that where everything depends entirely on whether you're going to have a successful monsoon or not. In a situation like that, so that many of those ifs can disappear if we have a water conservation plan in the manner in which we were taught by our own tradition. And I think that's the primary one. And of course, as technology develops and things become much more, we are capable of using technology to conserve water, maybe all of that should be used. But in the meanwhile, not to forget that we have a tradition and to follow that tradition. I'm Shyam Benegal. I think this initiative of Pani Ka Tika is a wonderful one because it brings to people's consciousness on a regular way to see that water is conserved as much as possible, not to waste water. Because whether you live in a city, whether you live in a village, whether you live on the plateau, whether you live in a riverine valley, or you live in the desert, the important thing is water has value. You have to conserve it, use it sparingly as much as you want, and not waste it.